Hi everybody, this is Nancy from the Summer Weekday Batch. Just wanted to go over some things about this Homework 8. It definitely is a booger bear. The biggest thing I had an issue with, and I think a lot of people also had the same issue, was finding a good website to use, because so many websites now are click, 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 and you put in a minimum of information, or you have to sign up before you can use it, or you get all these pop-ups and everything that you can't disable to just use the website. So literally, I found the first website that I wanted to use fairly easily. The second one, I was fiddling with it Thursday night and half the day Friday, just trying to find an appropriate website, and it took me forever, and I finally stumbled across one. And I'm going to show you what it is, and if you want to use it, you're more than welcome to. So whenever I get ready to start homework, this is what I do. I print out a hard copy of whatever our homework or instructions are, so I have it beside me and I don't have to have it on the computer toggling back and forth, that sort of thing. And then I open the UFT and I open Notepad, because I know I'm going to need those. And then if I'm going to be doing screen captures or something, either for the assignment or just for my own information, then I'll open a Word document and I'll open my snipping tool, but I don't really need that here, so I'm not going to take up my memory on my computer by opening more than I need. Alright, so I'm not going to do the entire script that I used yesterday. I'm going to do a partial. Obviously he told us to use 20 lines and he said to have 10 variables, but I'm just going to run through everything here just to show you in a shorter version what you should do. Okay, first things first, this is the website that I stumbled across. It's called whatsthecost.com/snowball.aspx. If you look at it here, it looks like it really wouldn't be enough for us to do anything with, because it just has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 overall boxes to input stuff in, and some of it is optional, so you don't even have to have it. But the nice thing is, this is the thing to calculate how much debt you have and what it will take to get you out of debt. So if you have bunches of debt, then you can set it all the way up to 20, right? So I set mine on 5, and as soon as you do that, it pops open a bunch of other boxes, which thankfully are not completely identical, because the people who created it had the sense to go, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. Debt box 1, debt box 2, debt box 3, that sort of thing, so you don't have to worry about having to use ordinal identifiers or anything. So I did mine, and I ended up writing up for 5 debts, but I did not fill in each and every box in here because some of it was optional. So what I did was, I started with 5. We're going to start here just with 2, and that'll give us enough room to get several lines of script so you can see what I was doing. Okay? So the first thing we have to do, go over to UFT, whoops, that's not UFT, go over to UFT and start using our ObjectsBy. So you're going to click on ObjectsBy, you're going to click on the hand, and then the first thing you're going to choose is this number of debts box here. And with this one, doesn't really matter whether you click on, whether you hold over here or here, because it is a web, well, it's a web element. Web list. I have it here so it selects as a web list. So you click on that. Whoops, did it wrong. Sorry, only had half my coffee. You click on that, and then you're going to copy it. You paste it to this handy dandy little notepad that you had, and then you close. And the only reason you have the notepad is to make it easier to see everything. Okay, so we have all our stuff here easy to see. I made my UFT page a little bit smaller so I could have these items side by side on my desktop, so I could see it at the same time instead of having to toggle back and forth. As we see in the top, it is a web list, so .wb list parentheses. I usually try to use 3, and this is a .select because it's a list, so you're not typing in anything, you're just selecting from what is there. And I'm going to put something in there. So I try to select 3 things to uniquely identify this particular item. Sometimes I can get away with 2. Usually I prefer to do 3. So as you see here on the side here, you have an HTML HTML ID, which is one thing, HTML tag, which is another thing, and then the name, DDL number of card, is exactly the same as the HTML ID, so I don't want to use that, because if you use the same thing, as I did not know the first time I did my homework, it doesn't do you any good. So don't use things that are identical. So copy, paste. So I got a name, and let's see, it's a combo box select, so I got a selected type. I'm just copying and pasting, and then I'll do HTML tag select. And this should be enough to uniquely identify this particular thing. Now, we have to do a lot with these scripts. We have to write them, we have to declare variables, we have to name our variables, we have to do message box, and then in the second homework we have to do input box, and we also have to do a print function. The way I did it is I did my script first without doing any of that other stuff. You do not see option explicit here, you don't see dim here, any of that stuff yet, because I'm going to go back and add it later. When we were on the Edmunds.com website or on the other car website that we did in class, we were kind of doing it as we go, and it's easy to do if you know the website and you've seen it 1,000 times. You know that it's going to be monthly payment, and then the next thing's going to be zip, and then the next thing's going to be interest rate, and then the next thing's going to be your down payment, because we've done that website 1,000 times. This is the first time I saw this website was Friday when I was doing the homework. So I don't know what's what or what anything is named or what I'm going to name it. The first things first, I'm going to go ahead and get my script, make sure it runs, and then after that I am going to do all the extra stuff. So the first thing I did was do the first capture, which is for this thing right here, and I'm going to say that I have 2 debts, which is a joke because in real life obviously must have more than that. Alright, so first line is done. And we're going to do, I don't know, 5 pages. 5 lines of script here. So I'm going to go grab my next one, ObjectsBy, click on the hand, hold down the control button if you want to move this out of the way. Then the next thing I need to select is this little box that has how much money do I have every month to service the debt that I have. Okay? So we grab that, copy. First I got to get rid of all this because I'm done with it. And paste. And close. If you get into a rhythm and you do things the same way every time, it'll be a lot easier for you. This is also web edit. Actually web edit rather web list. Web edit. And since I will be putting stuff in, it is set because I will be typing in information. The first time I was selecting from a drop-down list, so it's a web list. The second time is a web edit, therefore I'll be typing stuff in. Now let me go ahead and find my values. Remember, this thing right here, default value, it doesn't have anything in it. See, after the equal sign is completely empty. So you don't want to use that. It doesn't have any information for you, therefore it is not useful. So grab stuff that is useful in allowing you to uniquely identify, and you use as many as you need. Typically for a normal website that we're going to see, 3 is generally okay. Very occasionally, I think on one of the website I used for the first part of the homework, I had to do an ordinal identifier once because I had identical boxes on the same page. But that's not going to necessarily be, you know, something we have to worry about. Okay, so this says text monthly service, and the name is exactly the same, so I don't want to use that. Let's see, outer HTML, no, I don't want to use that, that's too long. Don't want to use any of this stuff because it's either blank or it can change. And I'm just going to go with 2 on this one. If you change your mind, you just decide to go with 2 instead of 3 because you think that's unique enough, make sure you don't leave an extra set of quotation marks or an extra comma in there, right? Okay, let's say I'm going to have $1,000 to set towards this debt every month. Okay? Line 2 is done. Let's go grab line 3. Same way. You hold down your control key. I'm holding down my control key just to get this out of the way. And then these I'm not going to mess with because I don't want to, because I have plenty of other boxes to deal with. You don't have to deal with every button or box on the page, especially if they're things that are optional. You just ignore them. So this one I caught, called debt name, and I copy and paste it onto my text notepad here and close ObjectsBy. This is also a web edit. I think from here on out most everything is a web edit on this particular page. So let's go ahead and grab the HTML ID. And the name. And as you see here on these previous ones, the name and the HTML ID were identical, so I didn't want to use them. But here the HTML ID is CTLO4 underscore text name. Here it's CTLO4 backslash $ text name. So it's not precisely the same, so I can use that to help identify. And we'll choose that it is an HTML tag of input. Paste. And 3 is sufficient for me. Alright, so what am I looking for here on this one? It says, what is the name of your debt? Well, I'm going to call it school loan. You can call it whatever you want. You can say pet food, doesn't matter. But for this, I decided school loan. Alright, so that line is done. Now, ObjectsBy, click on the hand, hold down the control key, move this out of the way. Then the next thing is going to be the balance. Click on that. Just how much debt you owe on that particular item on the school loan. And obviously the numbers are made up and you can change them, which is really nice when you start getting into like if you had to name something different or put a bunch of different numbers in it, it's a lot easier to keep track of. This is also a web edit. Whoops. Okay. You don't have to be creative and try find something different and new every line. If you're going to grab the name for every line, as long as it's unique, do it. If you're always going to grab that HTML tag and it works, do it. If it's enough to help you uniquely identify it, knock yourself out. Use the same information every time. Okay, so that's the next line. And let's say I owe $10,000 on my student loan, which thankfully is not true. I don't have any student loans. Alright, let's grab one more line and then we're going to test it to make sure that it works. And non-flexible, not going to click it, don't care. Next thing, standard APR, which is going to be percentage rate. Copy, paste. Alright, and this is also a web edit. I'm going to grab that HTML ID. Going to grab the HTML tag. And going to grab the name. And if I seem to be going a little fast, it's because this is the website that I used for my homework, so I'm fairly familiar with it now. So don't think I'm like, you know, super duper woman with typing speeds. And I actually cut my finger preparing dinner last night, so my typing is a little clumsy with my left hand. Alright, so let's see what we have. The percentage rate, we're going to say it's 3.25, just for the heck of it. Do not use the percentage sign because it's over here outside the box. You don't need it. So let's take a look again. I chose 2 as my number of debts. I said, how much do I have to spend on it? I got $1,000 to put towards my debt. The first one is called a school loan. The balance is $10,000 and the APR is 3.25%. Obviously, if you're shooting for 20 lines of code, you're going to keep on going because I have a grand total of 5. And if you say, you know, for each box, you're going to average around 1, 2, 3, 4. See, 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you're going to input per box. Then in order to get 20 lines of script, you're going to need at least 4 or 5 boxes because you get a couple extra lines here. So just bear that in mind. I used 5. I gave myself a few extra, but it's actually pretty easy. This was a very easy one to write. Okay, so you'll see I put in a note here. Anytime you have something you want to share with the person who's going to be grading your script, put it in up here. Hopefully they'll see it. And they know they're supposed to clear it sometimes anyway, but you know, I always like to help out whenever I can. Remind them. Because you know, we're writing on different computers. Not all of us have Windows 10. Not all of us have IE 11. Maybe you're using the VMware and it's going to work a little different. So if you have anything wonky about your particular computer, you can even put in here and say this script was created on a Windows 10 machine using IE 11. And that way, whoever's grading your test, maybe Jay is going to be the one grading this particular one, and he knows it's a little wonky and you got to do this, that, or the other. You have to, you know, make allowances for the fact that they did it on the VMware with an older version, and so it looks a little different. You know, a little information in here doesn't hurt. And it's commented out. Obviously, it's not going to run. So I've cleared all my scripts. I've closed the window. I have my system util close process by name, so if I left the window open, it will automatically close it. And then systemutil.run, it will open iexplore.exe and then the website. And then it should run and put all of the stuff that I put in here. I know we're going to be changing this because we're going to be doing variables, but for right now, just to see if the script runs, I'm doing it everything straight descriptive programming, okay? And save as you go, therefore you don't lose anything. Then you don't have to cry. And I was fiddling around here, record and run settings, make sure I have, see, I would have gone over to bank rate. So let's do this, change that, and run. Hands off. Why is it not opening? There we go. Just took a while. Okay, very good. So we didn't have any issues. Ran cleanly. If you look at the page, it did fill in all of the information. And one thing I really like about this website, it is super simple. It does not have a lot of dynamic content and pictures changing and pops-ups and things flashing at you, which are a pain in the tushy. So this is a very simple website to use. And you can see it's not very pretty. It's very functional. And that's great. That's the way I want it to be. Alright, so we know that this script works correctly. If you were doing this for your homework at this point, you would be adding to your debt box, and then maybe you've done 3 or 4 instead. You can change that over here so it'll open up 5 instead of just 2, so that you have plenty of data here to grab your 20 lines of code, right? These appear to be identical, but when the person created this page, they were kind enough to go, well, this is the balance owed number 2 and this is balance owed number 3, so the names are different, so you don't have to worry about using ordinal identifiers to choose which one you know, that you're talking about, which is very nice. So we're done with that for now. I'm going to go ahead and clear the cache. I'm going to be doing this like reflexively for the rest of my life, whether I need to or not. There we go. Now what we need to do is start declaring our variables. Dim. You can do browsers. URL, which I actually did not declare my browsers and my browser and my URL as variables simply because I had other things that I could to fulfill my declaring 10 variables, so I didn't need to. So let's just do something else. Dim, we're going to do number debts. Dim money to pay. Dim loan name. Dim amount owed 1. I think you're not allowed to start with a number, so I'm going to end with a number, and then finance rate 1. And the reason I said finance rate 1, all those boxes all have, you know, similar information, so you're going to have another, what is the name of your debt? Well, it's going to be school loan, or it's going to be Visa card, and then the next one is going to be MasterCard, and the next one is going to be house payment or medical bills or whatever. So since I'm going to have multiple, if I were to be doing this all the way, things that are similar, I can't just say school loan name, I have to say loan name 1 because I'm going to have it again down here. Alright, so dim number of debts right here. I have 5. The money to pay, 1,000. What is the loan name for this? It's a school loan. How much do I owe? 1,000. And what's the finance rate? Is 3.25. I'm going to actually get rid of this because I'm going to change this and put the variables in, right? So I've declared all my variables that I want to. And then I have to do number debts equals 5, and money to pay equals 1,000, and loan name 1 equals amount owed 1 equals 10,000. And finance rate of the first one, which in my case is the only one here, is 3.25. Now the whole point of this is declare your variables here and then assign values to these variables here, and then you don't have those here, right? You got to get rid of that. And I already tested the script using these hard-coded numbers here. I'm going to get rid of them and change it to number debts. Money to pay. Loan name 1. Amount owed 1. Finance rate 1. Now, what do we have to do every time we do a script? Option explicit. Helps if you spell it right. Option explicit. That way it will not allow me to misspell anything here. If I forgot to put an S on the end of here, it wouldn't take it. So let's go ahead and take a look at where we are now. So the homework said find a website, use that website to create a script of at least 10 variables, which is very easy to do with this website. I just chose not to do it, otherwise this video would take 4 hours. Then you have to make sure that you do option explicit and you declare your variables. Then you are going to assign values to your variables. These can be anything and they can change. You have the control. That's what you're typing into the little box, okay? Or selecting from the drop-down menu. And then you later we'll do the print and we'll do the message box and function, but this is how we're building. Every time you get to a certain point where you're doing a different step, run it to make sure it works before you go on to the next step. And then obviously you can check your syntax. That's under the design. Check syntax, or you can do Control F7. And then you drag this up here and it says, hey, your syntax is valid. Good. So at least you know you didn't screw up anywhere in here, like leaving out a quotation mark or parentheses or something like that. So we are good to go. We're ready to test again. Option explicit. I've declared in memory these variables. I have given values to these variables, and I have written the names of the variables here. When I run it, this program will ensure that this information gets put on the website rather than the word number debts, the word money to pay, the word low name one. If, God willing and the creek don't rise, if I did everything correctly, that is what will happen. Let us run. My hands are off the keyboard, letting it do its thing. And there we go. View, expand. And obviously we're not going to get any results from checkpoints because we don't have any checkpoints. The only thing is when you do that system util right here, it will show as a pass or fail. Everything else, there's no red on here, so I know everything went well. Okay? Alright, so part 1, building the script worked correctly. Part 2, declaring the variables and assigning them values worked. Now the next thing we have to do is message box. And message box is, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and end here because I actually have to go back and refresh myself over message box, which is funny because it's easier than output box, but I remember output box and I don't remember message box. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and actually it's good because that way the video won't be too awful long. But this is the basic on how you create a script. I would say definitely use this website. I don't care if all of us turn in this website because it's very easy to use, but you can put your own numbers and everything in it, and so you know they can see everybody did the work independently. That's always the question. So if you have any questions, just give me an email, send me an email, or text me or whatever. And I will get this up on YouTube very shortly, and then I'm going to review my menu box, and then I will pick up where I left off using the same script. So let me save this so I don't lose anything, and I will see you folks later. Bye-bye.